Oh, welcome to my first video. My name is Héctor, and I am here to share my thoughts. These videos are meant to demonstrate the process that I've had through years of introspection, the conclusions I've had to a lot of big questions and a lot of big challenges that I've had to develop. I think that everyone has to create their own belief system and their own answers to all of these big questions in order to have a fulfilling life. And so for the past, since I was 18, so for the past 15 years, I've been dedicating myself to introspecting a lot about how I feel, what I feel, and journaling a lot. So these videos are meant to share those thoughts and demonstrate that thought process that I had to getting to the answers to these questions. Each video will be related around a question or a subject that I would like to discuss through my perspective. This is the first video, an introductory video about who I am. Why should you listen to these videos? Well, I'm hoping that by sharing my thought process, people can take this and go to therapy and discuss the same issues, but through their own thoughts. How are their thoughts related? I think that though we all live different lives, we deal with the similar insecurities problems, although they take different forms, which is very confusing, but it's true. The issues that I've dealt with, the answers that I've found, the peace that I'm cultivating for myself was found through identifying in my specific situation what were, you know, these negative aspects of my upbringing or these negative aspects of my way of thinking that influenced and created some bad habits. What were some positive aspects of my upbringing that helped me not crumble and perish? How have I been able to survive for so long? So sitting down and thinking about that and identifying it and writing it down for myself has brought me a lot of peace, and that's what I would like for people. Let's get into the nitty-gritty of who am I. First, I'll break this down by stating that I believe being is it's very complicated. It's why philosophers have thought about it for forever. But essentially, I think there's the brain and the body, or the organic, or the physical, and then there's the spiritual, the soul, the consciousness, God. So, in terms of the physical body, this body is an ape body. I live in an ape body. I am a Homo sapiens sapien. It has a lot of limits, and living in an ape body comes with certain necessities, certain needs that you need to meet, and limitations. Anyway, so part of who I am is the ape body. I live in the ape body. Secondly, I was born male, I identify as a man. That in itself carries a lot of implications in the world, good and bad. There's good and bad. I'm not going to sit here and say I'm not a men's rights activist. I don't think that's the thing. I will just say that I think men are socialized in a very different way when it comes to emotion than women are socialized when it comes to emotions, feeling, identifying, and discussing them. Whereas men, I think in general, especially me, I feel I was socialized to not talk about it, repress it, and then just drink it away. That ideal is led to so much pain and toxicity and damage to to a lot of things in my life, my physical body, my professional career, my personal development. So there's that. May. I was born in Mexico. I am a Mexican American. That's why I speak English like this. I was born in Mexico City at the age of 3. My nuclear family and I moved to San Juan, Puerto Rico. My brother and sister were born there. I was diagnosed with cancer in San Juan, Puerto Rico. It's a lovely place. I was in treatment from ages 3 to 8. There were some very few complications. I got pneumonia at one point and had to be hospitalized, but other than that, nothing all too crazy. So there's that cancer survivor, which is a huge anxiety that I still deal with. The oldest of 3, my brother and sister were born in Puerto Rico. I am older than them by 5 and 6 years. I was an overweight child. I wrote that down in my notes. I think it's important because I still deal a lot with my image, my own body dysmorphia in a way, and my self-worth through that image. And being an overweight child is also, I realized, was actually kind of good for me because it made me very curious. I had to read a lot. And then apparently, and this is something that I just discovered, it helps with bone density as you get older. So now my bones are denser than most people's. You should all have been eating double quarter pounders when you were 8 years old. Like I said, I grew up in Cincinnati, in Mason, in the suburbs of the Midwest. It has a lot of pros and cons. Pros are a lot of safety. Cons are there's not much to do and a lot of isolation, and you depend on your parents to take you anywhere because there's no public transportation. So that was difficult in its own way. For my parents, it was their dream. It was my nightmare, but that is life. You don't appreciate what you have unless you've never had it, right? So my parents were like, "Oh, this is amazing! Like, look at all the stuff. It's so peaceful." But because I didn't grow up in their history, I couldn't appreciate it until I moved back to Mexico and was like, "Oh, yeah, there are a lot of good things about the Midwestern suburbs." Then I went to college and I studied anthropology. I was very curious about the person, the human being. Growing up as a Mexican American, I was always an outsider, so I was always just curious, like, why are people the way they are? What is this? Anthropology provided me a great perspective. I'll briefly go over what it is. Anthropology is the study of the human being. It's broken up into four sections in the US: linguistic anthropology, archaeology, physical anthropology, and cultural anthropology. I was interested in physical and cultural anthropology. These perspectives study the human being. Physical anthropology studies the evolution of the human being and its lineage and how these behaviors still happen in hunter and gatherer societies and how that might reveal insights about our true nature. And just understanding the human being from a biological perspective. Apes have status, apes have communication, apes have culture. And then cultural anthropology is understanding how culture is created and expresses itself in different societies. What is culture? That's a big, complicated question. I would say that culture is a system of norms and beliefs that have been adopted by a society that has helped them survive. I'm not a PhD in anthropology, just my own personal belief from studying anthropology and being around people. After studying anthropology, I studied an MBA in the Pali Business School in Mexico City, which was a very interesting experience because it was a private business school. I had only gone to public school most of my life, except for like elementary school, which I don't remember. And so it was an interesting experience. The class divides that exist in Mexico were fascinating to me because you create these different subcultures based on income in Mexico and net worth. And it's fascinating. I think it happens in every developing economy. I learned a lot about business. It was a great experience in that it was really challenging, and it was so challenging that I hated it most of the time. But after I graduated, I realized that it was really cool. So that's like physical, biological things. I guess in terms of job, I am a qualitative researcher and starting to develop a career and strategy. That's not who you are. And I think that happens a lot in society is that your job becomes who you are. And that's terrifying because most companies will only keep you around as long as it's beneficial, which is just that's the way business works. That's an input output calculation that most businesses do. So that's the physical. In terms of the spiritual, that's a different question. Really, for me, I was a very, very atheistic for a long time, but adopting this belief system did not help me deal with the realities of life. Is it true or not true? I don't know. I don't know if God is real or not. I need to believe that God is real so that my body will function. I need to believe that God is real so that have some feeling of purpose. I have some feeling of support. I have some feeling of letting go. One of the biggest things of sobriety is just learning to let go. Honestly, like that's the serenity prayer is controlling what you can and letting go of what you can't. And I don't believe in the monotheistic God because I don't believe in a God outside of me. I believe we are God. I don't believe in a God that's judging my actions because why would they judge my actions? They know the context of everything that I've grown up in. So why would they be mad? It didn't make sense to me. So then I had to just really kind of make my own definition, look into different spiritualities, a lot of Eastern spiritualities where God isn't necessarily something outside of you, it just kind of is, it is to be in the Christian. Well, I don't know if it's in the Bible. Definitely in the movie, The Prince of Egypt, the bush says, I am, therefore I am. Anyway, so for me, the spiritual sense is really this belief that you are an energy form that expresses itself through the body. And the body has its memories. So the brain was trained from your childhood until it stops developing. But your brain is trained on that data set. So whatever reality you lived as a child, your brain thinks is the only reality in the world, which is wrong. There are many realities in the world. Ask a person from a different country and a different income what their day-to-day looks like, and you'll see that their reality is completely different than yours. And so growing up in this environment that I grew up in, I believed that there was one reality and it was very depressing and very chaotic and very stressful and very alone. And why did I believe that? Because I grew up in a very chaotic, very stressful, very isolated environment. And so my brain kept those ideas and said, this is reality. And I had to practice mindfulness, learn how to identify my thoughts and say, I see your thoughts, brain, but I don't identify with them. And this came from a book called The Power of Now, and I will get into that very deep in the mindfulness and mental health video. But overall, basically, it is this ability to take a step back, observe your thoughts, and then I ask myself, who is the observer, right? I like to believe it's something outside of the physical brain, that it's either a conscious, like we are receiving consciousness from a universal consciousness, or it's something much more complex than we really understand because we don't understand much about consciousness. There's no absolute truth that we know. And so I had to adopt this belief system in order to believe that I could change my actions. If you tell me that I am my brain and that is it, and my brain is trained on certain behaviors that I really couldn't influence, I wasn't conscious enough to influence my upbringing, it just happened. And so if I am that, then I'm stuck. There is no behavioral change. I am stuck being in this pattern of toxicity, of over drinking, of self medicating, of never asking help, of being alone, of not trusting anyone, of being pessimistic, etc. Or I could say, I am not the brain. I am something more than the brain, and I use the brain to express myself. This reality, this definition gives me a lot of peace because it allows me to say, okay, my brain, my body is going through some things. What are those things that my brain and body are going through? Let me identify them. How does it need to process them? Let me help it process it. Okay, it's processed it. Now I can continue living through the body and flowing through the body. And that helps me have a sense of clarity, a sense of a little bit of control over what I can change about myself. Because I can't control the weather. I can't control other people's actions. I can't control other people's behaviors. I can't control other people's image of themselves. What I can control is developing myself. What I can control is being mindful of the thoughts that I interact with, of the thoughts that I decide that I want to identify with. I also often hear this voice judging me, you know? It's obviously not like a auditory voice, but it's a thought. It's a thought that says, why are you doing this? And recently I've been asking myself, whose is the voice that judges? Why it doesn't make sense that I would question myself. There's something else somewhere along the line. My brain picked up this idea of you need to question yourself. You need to know that you're not worth it. And I need to stop identifying with that and say, no, maybe it helped us survive, but no long. And so when it comes to answering who am I, obviously in a business setting, I answer qualitative market researcher, strategy enthusiast in health, specifically the health sector. But between friends, it becomes a lot more complicated because I want to be honest. But even between friends, some of them don't agree with what I say. And I'm just like, I don't know what to tell you. I have to, this isn't a debate. This is what I have to believe in order for myself to not feel the never-ending urge to just drink my day away, my night away, my problems away, my feelings away. If you tell me that my brain, that I am my brain and I'm stuck there and I can't fix it, it makes me feel stuck, claustrophobic, hopeless. But if I tell myself, the brain is an organ that you can change, there is hope, then I'm hopeful. I mean, I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. That gives me a drive. And so that's the answer to who I am. It's really, I believe I am this energy that's using this body to express itself. But I think it's a symbiotic relationship because the body needs the energy to exist, and the energy needs the body to exist. They both need each other. I would say this, and this is kind of my final thought. I came to this conclusion because I read a book by Malcolm Gladwell about liars. I'm not sure what it's called. But he discusses in it the effects of drinking and how drinking shuts down your frontal lobe. And that's where your decision making and your critical thinking skills are located in your brain. If you've ever blacked out, you know that your body does things and you're not there. Like you are not there. And I believe that's the body without the energy that drives it, the consciousness. The frontal lobe is shut down. It can't receive consciousness. It can't make those decision making skills. That's what I'm going to believe because it makes me feel at peace and it makes me feel like I can change myself. I can't change the world, but I can change myself through small actions, watching which thoughts I interact with and interacting with the right thoughts, or learning how to be completely present and acting through being present, which some people call flow. And I leave you with this thought. Who are you and what do you want to identify with? Do I want to identify with the patterns of the past, with the hope of the future? Who are you? Your brain, your body, or your spirit? Have a great start to your week. Goodbye.